Hi everyone, the plan for my lesson is to use pop art as a unit for my second grade students, inspired by Andy Warhol, our class plant, and also answering the question of how does the work of pop artists from the past affect the work that we make now? And how can we take the main styles of the pop artists and integrate it into our own work as second grade artists? Okay, so you can find this lesson as well as a link to the video on my website, which is right there. It's a little bit extensive, but I will send or post another link that you can access it more easily. So for the big ideas for this lesson, working with backward design, I wanted to start with the idea of pop art. I love teaching art history to kids because it's just really fun and brings the reality of art making into a really realistic perspective for kids, and for the younger ones, they can just be so creative and expressive with all these different styles and movements. So from that, I wanted them to kind of understand the movement of pop art, all of the kind of different ideologies and philosophies behind it, and how to incorporate that through different mediums and through different styles of assignments. So you'll see there's 3 different projects within the unit, which are all a different style but also require a different medium. And then our essential question. So obviously the most essential question is, what is pop art? And then how does pop art affect what we see and make today? And then how can we create work like the pop artists? So those are the 2 or 3, I guess, overlaying essential questions for all of the lessons within the unit. And then I kind of break those down and go a little bit more in depth as the lessons change. So the 3 lessons in the pop art unit for the second graders are kind of focused on replicating the styles of art that Andy Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein produced and were famous for, and are still famous for today. So those are the works that you see here. So the first lesson is a guided drawing done by the teacher and replicated by the students, in that would go over how to draw a soup can. So how to make something that looked like Andy Warhol's soup can. So we'd start with a guided drawing. It's a 4-step process, which you can see it's there kind of small, where the students draw just a basic cylinder shape, and then they have the opportunity at the end to add their own unique touch to the soup can. So everyone's would sort of be the same, but also be different. So one of the essential questions for this particular lesson would be, how can we make our work unique even if we follow the same direction? So in the end, they have the opportunity to choose colors. They cut it out, they mount it on their choice of colored papers, and they could choose a different flavor or change the label, color, or wording however they would like. So it is something that, even though it's a guided drawing, they're not all exactly the same in the end. Obviously, they're not going to be exactly the same because every child is a different artist. So it's taking that sort of idea of Andy Warhol of replicating something over and over again, but also making it a little bit different. The second lesson, so this would be probably the next week, would be looking still at Andy Warhol and his printmaking technique and having the students make their own independent prints. So they would have a styrofoam block and they would be choosing a pop culture icon, motif, or symbol, and those would be vocabulary words for the lesson, or really for the unit, because it'd be something that we would be covering a lot of. So they choose their own, and you can sort of see on mine, I have the Starbucks mermaid logo that I printed 4 times, and then that one to the left there is the Snapchat logo. So have them kind of take an image that they see often in pop culture and replicate it for themselves as a stamp, and then make multiple prints in different colors and different kind of like patterns using that printmaking technique that Andy Warhol did. So this would also be kind of an assessment time for the students to see, like, do they understand what kind of drove the pop art movement of taking something from pop culture, this kind of average image that you might see every day, almost to the point of not even noticing at all, and turning it into your own unique original work of art. So that would kind of be an assessment that I would do at the end of the first week, of have the students try and brainstorm as their quote ticket out the door, what would they recognize in the world around them as a pop culture symbol that they could incorporate then into this second lesson. Third lesson, so this might be I think the second lesson might take a couple of weeks, but so for the third lesson, basically it would be a collaborative work of art. So the students had their opportunity to do guided drawing, their own opportunity to do independent work with printmaking. Now they're going to be making a collaborative piece based off of Roy Lichtenstein, looking at pointillism, looking at the use of onomatopoeia in art. So the whole class would choose a word, and I'm thinking something like crash or Lichtenstein's varoom, so that each group of students, or each table, because they sit at tables, would get a letter that would already be pre-drawn on a large scale paper for them. They'd have to cover the letter from their onomatopoeia and the background with color, and then go over the colored letter and spaces with pointillism dots. So because it would be a large work, probably, I'm thinking like the papers I have are probably like 2 feet by 3 feet. So that's kind of a lot for one student, especially a second grader, to tackle independently. So instead of working in a group of about 5, I would think, to work on one letter together, and then when we put them all together, it'd spell out the word and have that pop art style that Lichtenstein used in his work. All right, and then for standards and assessment, so the standards that I was able to draw, again, from like backward design of these lessons that kind of surround the idea of pop art, there were standards that fell in the creative, the creating, the presenting, and the reflecting categories of the National Art Standards, also the New York Art Standards. So I thought that was great because we are going to be able to really take this big idea and run with it in a lot of different ways, from creating independently, creating collaboratively, to brainstorming our own ideas and then reflecting on them, especially at the end of the unit after all of these lessons have been completed. So as far as assessment goes, like I said in the second lesson, a big formative assessment for these students would be to come up with their own pop culture symbol, or realize their own pop culture symbol that they could use for printmaking. So I would have some examples like I have on the screen, some things that they see every day: Nike, Twitter, Toyota, maybe not Toyota in New York City, but McDonald's, things like that they see every day, almost don't even pay attention to because it is so commonplace. But how could they use that image in that form and turn it into a work of art for themselves? And then again, being in New York City, we would have the opportunity at the end of the unit to even go to the MoMA and see, and actually at the Met too, I think that there is some Warhol right now. But at the MoMA, there is like a pop art gallery, and I think that that would be amazing to be able to show the students. Obviously, we'd be like reading books, watching videos, looking at slides, creating our own work of art in the style of these famous artists, and then being able to actually go and see them, I think would be awesome way to kind of close up the unit. And then my last slide is mostly just my references. So if you want more information on pop art or some of these lessons too, I kind of adapted from others. then the information is here. But thank you very much.